Hey everybody.
We are now live.
Hey, I'm back now. We're just waiting another minute. We're setting multiple things up at a time, so like for church on Sunday. So.
And for the people that join online, if you can't hear it, then please let me know, and I will adjust the microphone settings.
Yes, we have a nice microphone I got for Christmas from my boyfriend.
Oh, look at that. Must be rich. My microphone.
Running joke. I'm sure you've done the same one, yeah? My boyfriend. Anyway, and Tracy's supposed to come.
Okay.
Did Daniel say he was going to come?
Oh, I know.
Okay. That's fine.
I know he was working on something.
Sorry.
Each and every day of my life, I bless the Lord at all times, 'cause He's good.
That black bean one is good.
Is it?
Never had it.
Hey, Hannah Kate.
Hey, Hannah!
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yeah, just gonna get started here in just a minute. Setting up in there for communion on Sunday.
You good, Miss Lisa? Because we're getting ready to start. Okay.
That's good.
Which, both of them?
I'll be going back for more.
Do you want to type it in the chat so people know to look in the files? Because you have the keyboard.
Yeah, but this is not attached to that right now.
Oh, okay.
This is mirroring that. If I get out of that, then it's gone.
Oh, okay.
But I will later.
She sure did. She sure made some bread, so you gonna swing on down?
Oh, yeah, I thought you were coming.
Yeah, swing on over. We'll
You
see
can
if
come
some
late,
bread.
it's all good. We won't look at you funny.
But the bread is here, and I was thinking, because my pizza game is getting to that next level, so.
Yeah, he's now got a peel and a rocker blade. Yeah, and I made strawberry salsa.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I'm
you
thinking
missed
of
that?
Yeah.
That was in those tubs. Is there strawberry salsa, and you can add kiwi and or mango.
thinking of maybe having a class at the
How do
house.
you eat it with
Ooh, I feel like I'm in the studio with this microphone.
Oh, okay, birthday party. Well, happy birthday. Happy birthday.
That's pretty cool.
So, yeah, the hummus is over there, the fruit that you brought, the crackers, and the salsa's there. Don't forget to get your, yep, you got your juice. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. Not that this week's is actually going to be, or this month's actually going to be less. So.
Oh, let me get my Bible out of the car.
Okay, but you definitely will be using paper here in a minute, or, yeah, taking some kind of notes.
Oh, she said she's stuck at a birthday party.
Oh! All good, Miss Hannah. You're still here with us. It's all good. All right. All right, so, candles. Look, I put a candle down. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadliknu shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with his commandments and commanded us to kindle the Sabbath lights. Vishamru, they shall keep the Sabbath. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, lasot et ha-Shabbat ledoratam b'ritolam. The people of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, observing. Oh, you pain in my behind. That's not what you were supposed to do. Observing the Sabbath in every generation as a covenant for all time. It is a sign forever between me and the people of Israel, for in 6 days the Eternal made the heaven and the earth, and on the seventh day God Shavat, stopped working and rested and was vayinafash, refreshed. The Shema. The table's rocking and then my iPad's rocking. We're not supposed to be rocking yet. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto, Le'olam Vayeh. Blessed are you, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Blessed is his name, is the name of his glorious kingdom forever and ever. And the V'ahavta, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words which I command to you today shall be upon your heart. You shall teach them thoroughly to your children, and you shall speak of them when you sit in your house and when you walk on the road, when you lie down, and when you rise. And you shall bind them as a sign upon your hand, and they shall be for a reminder between your eyes, and you shall write them upon the doorpost of your house and on your gates. Mi chamocha, who is like you? Mi chamocha b'alim Adonai. Mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh. Nora tehilo seifele. Nora tehilo seifele. Who is like you, O God, among the gods that are worshipped? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in splendor, working wonders? Es Chaim, the tree of life. Es Chaim he. Lama kazikim ba betom sheha meushar deracheha darkei noam vechol nativoteha shalom ashivenu Adonai life to those who grasp it, and its supporters are happy. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its ways are peace. Turn us, Adonai, to you, and we will return. Renew our days as of old. The Lord of the universe, the foundation of the world, Odam Olam. The Lord of the universe, who reigned before anything was created, when all was made by him and his will, he was acknowledged as king. And when all shall end, he still shall all. And when all shall end, he still all alone shall reign. He was, he is, and he shall be in glory. And he is one, and there is no other to compare or join him. Without beginning, without end, and to him belongs dominion and power. And he is my God, my living God. To him I flee in times of grief. And he is my miracle and my refuge, who answers the day I shall call. To him I commit my spirit in the time of sleep and awakening. Even if my spirit leaves me, God is with me. I shall not fear. An Aaronic benediction. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine to you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance to you and give you peace. Time for the wine. Or grape juice. All right. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who brings forth the fruit of the vine. L'chaim, to life. That's the light version. rather than the full one. So less calories.
I didn't know the difference.
I had never had the light, so I was kind of going, all right. No, do. I kept it warm. Warm herb.
My bread is still in the freezer.
This is from a frozen batch.
Really?
It is, I swear, it's been in there a month. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam homotzi lechem min haaretz. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. I told you. Kept it from the oven.
Oh,
I have a whole nother loaf up here.
okay.
All right. So, Shabbat Shalom, people. Mishpucha, Shabbat Shalom. Happy Sabbath, family. So I'm getting glitter on
What
bread.
you just said.
What's that?
I said what you just said.
Shabbat
Goodbye.
Shalom. That one's easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the next word is Mishpucha. Mishpucha. You got it? Family.
Family. Okay.
Mhm. Mm-hmm.
Shabbat shalom.
Mm-hmm. Because we all are family, right?
And one way or the other.
Excuse me. That's 3 times today now. Okay. So, I know we've said it several times about talking about the Hebrew calendar. I've even said, I gotta learn me about the Hebrew calendar. So we're gonna learn us about the Hebrew calendar. Okay. So,
Oh, you want to mention about the slides or the, because they won't be able to see it from
okay. The slides are in an attachment or in the group. So you can go find them, and if that doesn't work, let me know. We'll figure out another way. And I'll airdrop it to you guys before we leave. Excuse me. All right. So, it's a circle. A circle of life. Okay. And what you see is on the inside of the circle in the dark, that is the Gregorian months as we know them. Okay? The one at the top of the cross, if you can see, is March, the middle of March. So then going to the right, March, April, May, June is at 3 o'clock. Following me? Okay. Down here at the bottom is September, and at 9 o'clock is December. Okay? Now, that's because, and we've kind of talked about it before, but the Hebrew calendar has like 4 actual New Years. There's the biblical, there's the calendar or / civil, there's the one for trees, there's, okay? It gets really confusing, okay? But the Hebrew calendar has been in existence for a very long time. Thousands of years, actually. And it's based on, well, let me back up, Okay, first off, the Hebrew calendar is lunar. Okay, so 28 or 29 days is a calendar month. Okay, and there are,
Excuse me, do you know if that is the same for the Muslims?
it is.
Okay.
It is
Same
exactly
for
the
the
same.
Muslims, same for,
Chinese,
yes, Chinese, Koreans, all on the lunar month, or lunar calendar.
whereas the Gregorian calendar that we use is a solar calendar.
Okay.
Okay, so there are either 12 or there's 13 months, but there's also leap years. And their leap years have leap months in them. not days, months. Yes. Yes. So, this has been going on. All right, so this is based on, so this type of calendar is actually called the Metonic, okay? And it goes from some guy from ancient Greece named Meton or something like that. Anyway, the Hebrew calendar is actually a 19-year cycle. And in that 19-year cycle, there are actually 7 leap years. Now, it's actually one of the most accurate. Now, the reason there's a leap month is because we have to keep certain holidays in certain seasons. For example, Passover is always in the spring. Always in the spring. But if you've ever noticed, sometimes Ramadan moves all over the place, right? That's because they don't have leaps to keep it in season.
Okay.
The holiday doesn't matter. They don't have that same holiday to the season that necessitates leap or additions or subtractions. Okay, so if you look, the middle of March falls right there at Nisan, okay? Because Passover is actually the beginning of the biblical year, Nisan. And if you look, you can even see Passover and unleavened bread, okay? Each one of those red dots is a Sabbath. Okay, so there's 4 Sabbaths in a month, right? Because it's 28 days. Because it's lunar, all right? So it has all the holidays on here, starting with Passover. So Passover and unleavened bread, we count the Omers. That's the Feast of Weeks to Shabbatot or Pentecost. 7 Sabbaths, 50 days. Remember Pentecost? 50. Okay, and then we keep coming on to Tish B'Av and Tu B'Av. We haven't completely gone over that, but this year, with this cycle, I've decided that we're going to do more minor feasts, more of the minor feasts that go on, just to get a full, we'll still touch on the big ones as they come, but I wanted to focus on some of the minor ones, just so that those of you that have been coming and participating don't get bored, and I learn something new. Anyway, all right, so and then the 40 days of Teshuvah, which are the 40 days of awe in preparation, the 40 days of preparation before the high holy days, being Rosh Hashanah, the civil new year, Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, and Sukkot, okay? You have those 40 days of preparation. That's what those are, okay? And then you come into the season of joy. Then we have Hanukkah. And then we have the season of victory. And we have Tu B'Shvat, which we did the Seder last month. The Tu B'Shvat Seder, the birthday of the trees. And then Purim. Purim is always 30 days before Passover. Always. Purim, you saw, of course, the Feast of Lots, and that comes from Esther. But if you notice at the beginning, it said the Hebrew calendar and Purim Katan, which means small Purim, small Feast of Lots, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But this is the basic calendar with the names of the month, the Hebrew months, and then the Gregorian months, okay? Of course, these are not exact, but it gives you kind of an overlay of, all right?
You got me with the trees. What's that all about?
So we have a festival of trees. It's called Tu B'Shvat, and it literally means the 15th of. That's what it means. But what they decided is, just like we have a sabbatical year, a Shemitah year where we don't plow the ground or we don't harvest from the ground, we have, and it's biblical that you can't harvest a tree until its 4th season, 4th year. So what they did in order to make that easy is everybody had the trees all have a birthday. It's all the same birthday. If you're planted tomorrow, if you were planted yesterday and tomorrow is Tu B'Shvat, you're already a year old, whether you're a year old or not. Okay. But they did that, and then at one time, all of humanity actually used to have a single birthday. Way back when. very popular in the pagan, Greek, and Roman days. That there was one birthday for everybody. We didn't have to remember all these individual days.
I don't see how that.
I just know it just was.
Okay.
So, anyway, this is actually a list of the months in chart form, so it was easier to read, okay? So, it's in Hebrew, and then transliterated, okay? So, that first one is Nisan, and it's 30 days. And we celebrate Passover. But if you were to go to some places in the Old Testament, you would see something called Abib. They're still referring to Nisan. They're still referring to the first month of the year. So each one of these is the month in Hebrew and then in Roman letters. How many days and if there's a holiday that goes along with that. Okay? Now, if you notice here at the end, we have Adar and Adar 2. So, remember we're on a 19-year cycle, metatonic cycle. 12 of them are normal, only have 12 months. 7 of those years has 13. We happen to be in one. This is a leap year, 5782. That is the year on the Hebrew calendar, 5782. We are in actually the 6th year of this cycle. And I'll show you how I got to that in a minute. But anyway, so we had a whole nother month, 30 days, so that our cycle, our lunar cycle actually stays in tune with our seasonal cycle. Kind of nutty. It's about every other year. Every once in a while it's every third, but roughly. Okay? But this is just a list, so that you can look at it and peruse on your later. Then we have the days of the week, and it's really simple. It's first day, second day, third day. Not Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Sunday is the first day. It's the first day of the week, right?
Right.
First day of the week. So, guess what word here is day in Hebrew?
Young.
Young.
You got it. Yom Kippur. The Day of Atonement. Okay? So, Rishon is first. Sheni, second. So, I have given it, again, I've given it to you in Hebrew. I've given it to you in Roman letters and its translations. Okay? All right, so remember, 19-year cycle. 12 of those years have a 12-month cycle. 7 of them have 13 months. Those years are called Shana Mu'uberet, or pregnant years. Enlarged, pregnant, engorged. They have a 13th month, so they're pregnant. I got it. It goes with me. Anyway, so the way you find out whether or not the year you're in is a leap year, you got to do some math. 5782, which is the current Hebrew year, divided by 19 gives you 6. And 3, 6, 8, 11, 14, 17, and 19 years of the cycle are leap years. So if you divide 5782 by 19, it divides out evenly with a remainder of 6, which tells you are in the 6th year, which means it's a leap year. There is a little thing that they remember on how to do this, like onomatopoeia type. Pretty please, my dear Aunt Sally. They have something like that, but it's in Hebrew, so that's not our first language.
Where did the beginning number come from? The 5782?
5782 is supposedly the year since creation, roughly. Numbering back to the day 4 of creation.
The day 4 when
God created the stars in the sky to mark the seasons.
Okay.
Now, it is plus or minus a few years, but it's, yeah.
Okay.
So 6,000 years since creation.
Some
5,700 years.
Hebrew scholars will say it could be as much as 10,000, so it could be actually 10,782. But yeah, according to the Hebrew calendar, the world is not billions of years old.
So, well, I can get into some deep questions with that, but okay.
Well, let's give an example.
Like the fossils that they find, and they claim that there are so many millions. So that's part of the creation, correct?
Yep, but it's
It may not
based,
be of humankind at the time, but
right,
yeah.
but it's based on radiocarbon dating, which is based on how long an isotope of carbon or an atom of carbon breaks down. So we have to be for sure that carbon breaks down at a certain rate, and we're actually still not. For sure. Because the half-life of carbon is still more than what we've lived yet. Supposedly.
Okay.
So the way they got to this state, though, this year group, is they counted backwards in recorded history, and then took into account the ages of people in the Bible. Backwards. That's how they did it. That's how they did it.
Okay.
So yeah, but if you think about it, it says that, Moses was, or Abraham was 100 and something, right? And Sarah was 100 when she gave birth, right? So they took those ages and they went backwards. They just added them all together. So anyway, now here's the thing. We have to add these. Did you know that I think is it every 10th year or every 4th leap year? We actually have a 60th second added to the clock in order to keep our calendar straight. You didn't know that, did you? It doesn't go from 59 to...
Who's keeping up with all of this, but...
The mathematicians.
Yeah, I
the
know.
mathematicians, the
yeah.
atomic clock and all that. Anyway, it's like every 10 years or something like that. That December 31st actually has 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 60 seconds. So normally when you look at a clock, even digitally, it goes from 59 to 0, right? No. Every however long, you actually have 60. So there's an extra second that is actually added just to keep our clock on. And that's also to keep us in time with the seasons. Now here's the interesting thing. Within the seasons, that's called the tropical year. Okay? So spring arrives in the spring. Okay. The tropical year versus the Hebrew calendar only loses a day every 216 years. Considering that this calendar has been in existence for thousands of years, that's pretty stinking accurate. Right? You only lose, the difference in the timing is actually a day, a single day, every 216 years. Now, that being said, that's way better, of course, than the Julian calendar, which was one day, it lost a day one in every 128 years, but not nearly as good as the current calendar that we have. The Gregorian only loses one in 3,333 years. So, the Gregorian calendar is actually quite accurate to keep us on track. But the Hebrew calendar is not too bad when you look at some of the other ones that we have. If you've seen some of, like, there's one in like Vietnam or Laos, and the sun rises through these windows exactly, like every 5 minutes through each story. And to think that this thing was built thousands of years ago, and it's that accurate. The pyramids, same thing. They're accurate, just like, it's amazing what we knew and didn't know way back when we didn't have computers. So, anyway, So we were talking about the 1 day in every 216. The way that breaks down is you only have a 2-hour difference every 19 years. The Machzor Katan, or the small cycle. So that whole cycle, that 19-year cycle, is only 2 hours difference by the end of it. Just how, another one of those gee whiz, it's really accurate. So
what would be the need of following that, the
Hebrew calendar?
yes.
So you know where the
Nowadays.
seasons are, nowadays,
Yeah.
other than for the holidays, it's not.
Okay.
Even in Israel, they have the Hebrew calendar, but they still use the Gregorian one. It's more accurate, and the rest of the world uses it. So,
Okay.
you know, I mean, they do have both, but it's mainly for those biblical feasts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, remember we added a whole month? Every 30, we have a ladybug in the house.
They're everywhere.
So, 19 years is called a Machzor Katan, a small cycle. Okay? 13 of those is called an Igul. And every 30 Iguls, they have to remove a month. So 19 times 30, they actually, that one of those leap years, they don't add the month. Because otherwise they'd be off.
That's too much math.
Now you know why I always said, we're just not going to worry about it right now, right? That's what I always said. I was like, this is too much. We're not worrying about this. Well, I sat down and I learned. And it's still too much math. But this is how it's done. This is how it's done. And the biggest part of it is if you understand that just the 19-year cycle, and for 12 of those years, they have 12 months, and then they have 7 leap years where you get an extra one. And the only thing that budges up is Purim. It's the only holiday that gets screwed around. Because remember, if we add a month, and Purim has to be 30 days before, but we have 2 months now that are both called Adar. We have Adar 1, which is the leap month, and Adar 2, which is the regular one for the regular years. But we add in Adar 1. But it's still the month of Adar, and we're still told to celebrate a feast in Adar. On the 14th of Adar, we're supposed to celebrate Purim. But how do you do that? Because Purim has to be 30 days before Passover. But anyway, we're going to explain that. But that's, I know, it's a Google. It's a Google. It took me 2 days to do this. It's a Google. But I said I've done it now, so I've done it. Purim Katan. Catch it? See, you did it. Let's try this again. Thank you. Go to here and go there. Thank you. All right. So, if we remember Purim, Purim is the Feast of Lots, where Esther, with Mordecai's help, went before the king, Darius, and saved the Jewish people from being executed. Okay? During Purim, we eat the hamantashen, the little triangular cookies with apricot or poppy seed filling, and also known as Haman's hats, or Haman's hats. We read the Megillah, the story of Esther. So we read the whole book of Esther. We do acts of contrition and generosity and service. Okay, we dress up and we drink a lot on Purim. That's what we do. It's known as the Mardi Gras, Jewish Mardi Gras. Slash between Jewish Mardi Gras and Jewish Halloween because you dress up. But it's like Jewish Mardi Gras because you get drunk. Supposedly, The Talmud, the commentary, says that you should be so drunk that you cannot tell the difference between Haman and Mordecai. Because those are the three characters, by the way, the three characters, remember, that you dress up as, is either Haman, Mordecai, or Esther.
Okay.
But now, you get your superheroes right along with the princess and the Prince Charming idea.
Okay.
Hence the Halloween part. But you have the whole big party, because you need to be so drunk you can't tell the difference. You don't have to be, but hey, what do you do when you beat the government to the death sentence? You beat the government's death sentence, you get drunk, right? Whatever. Anyway, so what the sages said is, Purim is still Purim, and it will be celebrated as such in the leap years in Adar 2. So what do you do in Adar 1? Well, you celebrate Purim Katan, which means the small Purim. And what they decided to tell, what they said is, the sages and Gamaliel, as we talked about earlier, the school of Gamaliel, what these gentlemen decided is that we should be focusing on the internal salvation and the internal mechanisms that come along with the same ideas of Esther. And we're supposed to take bigger joy in the small joys and have a meal that we enjoy and eat things that make us happy. Specifically, it says we're supposed to eat things that make us happy. I'm not kidding. I'm really not kidding.
Every holiday, right?
As every Jewish holiday. They tried to kill us. We survived. Let's eat. And we make a big feast out of it, right? That's what it all are, right? Anyway, so hence the strawberry salsa and thank you for bringing the chocolate, because that goes right along with it, you know? So we're supposed to have a small festive meal to increase our joy. We're supposed to internally look at that whole redemption, salvation story of Esther internally and what God does for us. But we're supposed to pay attention to the internal part. But this is special because it comes first, being Adar 1, and we only get to celebrate it 7 times in a 19-year cycle. So it's like a big deal. Like when we have leap year, and you have that baby who has a leap baby, you know, who's that leap year baby, and they actually get to celebrate their birthday. I've seen quite a few of them have really big parties because it's literally their birthday. So, Purim Katan. So now we have talked about the Hebrew calendar, which we can discuss more because we got plenty of time, and Purim Katan. So the Feast of Lots, small. Literally, that's what that means. Okay? So, our new vocabulary. Rishon, Shani, Shli, Shi, Revi, and Hamishi, and Shishi, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Shana, Me'uberet, which is the pregnant or the enlarged year. Katan is small. And that lovely little C in there, you're probably going, what in God's name is going on over there? So if it's a maksor, it still means cycle, but it's specifically referring to the liturgy cycle. Okay? So think about it, like especially, well, gee whiz, Catholics get it from the Jews. We have set readings that come every week. That's the Maksor. That's the liturgy cycle. If it's a Mazor, it just means cycle. Okay? So when we had the Mazor Katan, the small cycle, that's what the 19-year cycle is called, is the Mazor Katan. Small cycle. Cycle. Okay? So that's the difference. That C is in there. And these are all some, not all of them, but this is slide 1 of past vocabulary. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times 4. There's 32 words on there. We're not done yet. You've also learned all those. So as long as I've been standing up here are all the words that you have been exposed to. So, have you been learning Hebrew or what? Yes. And this isn't even taking into account the prayers that you hear me say every month. Right? Impressed with yourself yet?
Not with myself, no.
With you, yes. Don't ask me to use this in a sentence. I'm not using it in a sentence. Except my favorite is asuf. Asuf. I'll go back. I'll go back. I'll go back. I'll go back. Here, asaf suf. Asaf means gathering, a group of people. Suf is a suffix, but it's negative. So if you have an asaf suf, you have a rabble, not a gathering. Like you had an asaf suf on January 6th. That was an asaf suf. Whereas Dr. King had an asaf. Get the difference? Rabble, misfits, miscreants. That's the suf.
Okay.
The asaf is the gathering. I don't know. It just one of my favorites. But yes, you've learned nearly 60 terms. You did?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right, now that I have completely blown all your minds, what you got? Talk to me.
Just open floor?
Open the floor.
Okay.
What you got?
I guess this week or the end of last week, tell me if Whoopi Goldberg was wrong with her statement, or is there some truth? From what I think I've asked you that question when we first started this, and I think I remember your answer, but I can see why she kind of brought it up. But was she wrong in saying that it was not a racial thing?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's because she says the word race, and she thinks color, like melatonin amount in skin.
Well, according to the definition, that's kind of like what it is. It's based on characteristics or
Right.
what race is.
So
Yeah.
here's the problem though.
Mm-hmm.
Even though 90% of the world considers Jewish people, Hebrews, Caucasian, they're not. They're Semitic. It's where the term anti-Semite comes from. And Semitic also includes Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran.
So African countries and Middle Eastern countries.
Well, not all the Africans, but yes.
Well, Egypt.
Ethiopia.
Yes, but yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There.
But yes, any of those those Mediterranean / Middle East countries, they're Semitic.
Right.
And I know you've seen pictures. There are people who get quite dark, and there are people who are quite light.
Yeah, because my boss is Egyptian,
Mm-hmm.
and I've seen where he put on paperwork that he's white, but because he could pass for a white person.
Yep.
But I said your ethnic group is African, and he was like, but in my country, I have cousins in South Egypt who are dark, and I'm considered white,
So I would say his ethnic group is Semitic. Because you can't even go, because you can't, if you're gonna go with color, you can't even do that, because what happens to the white South Africans? That's African.
No, but we're not going on region, we're going on
Just features.
features.
Okay.
Yeah, so they would be European origin.
Right,
Not-
they're of European origin.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so they would have, of course, they would be white, so they would be considered white African,
But is that
based on their region.
But is that a consistent characterization?
So you can see the difficulty?
What would an Asian person be? Or would they be both Asian by ethnicity and feature? Is that kind of where you would go with that?
Because Russia goes all the way across. So what happens there?
Well, I guess anybody could be considered, I see what you're saying. But if we're going by features, then we know what Asians basically look like.
Okay.
Dark, straight hair, some slanted eyes,
Right.
like that, yellow
Right.
skin.
Okay.
So yeah, so that would be the race.
So what are Indians? Are there Indians? Are they more Asian or are they more Semitic? So let's put that aside for now.
Let's try to keep going.
But
No,
see,
no, we're going to continue with the question. I'm just saying, let's put that
but even with
particular.
the Indians, they have like white-looking Indians, and then they have the dark-looking
But
Indians.
you were talking about like facial features and construction.
Construction,
So
right.
is there, like there was recently on the news, there were people, Uyghurs, thank you.
China.
They're actually from Russia. They're Chinese.
Yes.
They're from China, but they look Caucasian. They're white, but
Yeah.
they've been in China for a millennia.
Yeah. So by religion, I think by and large they're Muslim,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Not Russia or China.
right. So because I believe Russia is generally atheist, communist
Mhm.
atheist,
Mhm.
and I think China is the same.
They're they
But-
go atheist. Atheist communist. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I think, getting back to Whoopi though, I think if you kind of listen to her complete sentence, she was saying that at the time of Holocaust, how could you determine who was a Jew versus
Oh, gee whiz. You know how they did it?
how did they do it without looking at documents or whatever? How did they determine that?
That's exactly it. That's part of it. But if we go on the race thing, let's just go back to the race thing real quick. If you are of Hebrew blood, you are Semitic. So you are more closely genetically related to Egyptians than you are Germans. You see what I'm saying?
That's fine, but I think she was in that time period of the Holocaust.
Right.
How
but
would
even then,
you determine
Right.
who was who
Right.
without looking at
two
documents?
groups of white people.
That's right.
You're right.
So
You're
that's what she was basing her statement on,
right.
because everybody was white.
But it wasn't. But see, that was the other thing. It wasn't just white people that the Nazis were after, or not just Jews that the Nazis were after. But so if we go with that, yes, just to look at two people,
Right.
you couldn't necessarily tell the
So I
difference.
think that's where she was coming from.
And I
but
get
it
that,
was
but
misinterpreted.
But the Nazis said
Mhm.
they classified Jews as a race. Whether you could look at somebody and tell, but they classified it as a race. And so as I've been saying to other people lately, like, that's a racist remark. Well, hold up. It's a prejudice remark, but it's not necessarily racist, because to be racist, you have to have a prejudice and have power to do something about it. Okay? The Jews did not have any power in Europe. They had no power. So it was a racist because the Nazis, as the Aryan race, were prejudiced against the Jewish race. That makes it racist. That makes it against race. That makes it a racial thing. I get what she's saying about skin color. I get that, and that's a difficulty. And I think what made it worse was that she doubled down on it that evening. Had she just let her apology stand and just not go back over it, I think it'd have been a lot better. I think that's where she did herself in.
I mean, I think in today's speak, you might say it was more of an ethnic cleansing type thing, because you could say that someone is ethnically Jewish more accurately than by race. But I do think that
Somebody's coming.
Okay. Crystal, how you doing?
Hey, Crystal.
Webster defines race as any one of the groups that humans are often divided into based on physical traits, regarded as. Wait a minute. Regarded as. Hold on, I'm just scrolling.
I'm pulling it up. I'm going to see if I can't pull it up.
Sharing a common cultural, geographical, linguistic, or religious origin or background, the descendants of a common ancestor, a group sharing a common lineage. And so when you think about Noah's kids, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, all Semites, all Semitic people are descendants of Shem. That's how it goes. Shem, Semites.
And when you look, and then you go to, Semite, and then you go to Abraham, Isaac, and Ishmael, the Ishmaelites are now the Muslims. So again, they're literally brothers. You know what I'm saying? So we do have more in common if you're of the blood lineage to that part of the world than we do with the Scandinavian, European. But I can understand.
I understand that, but just by looking at you,
yes, you can't tell.
Nobody would have known without
You can't
getting
tell.
your documents, or they knew that you worship that way or whatever. So I think that was her. I understood where she was coming from, but
Yeah, and I understand, and I wish what I would like to know or try to see is what the conversation was leading up to it.
Yeah, because
that
they
caused that. I haven't read anything about that. We only got the after part.
Right.
That part and after. So I want to know what happened before that even brought that up.
Yeah.
So it just, and again, we can have. It's okay to disagree on a definition of terms. That's not, that shouldn't be something that divides us. As long as we, whether we agree with it or not, as long as we understand where the other person take into account what the other person is defining something as, but then that comes with understanding and the desire to understand.
Right.
I think.
So here's something that's written from that time. These outward appearances emerged from a mist of theories which had been produced for reasons of expediency, if not for purposes of downright deceptions. For that part of Jewry, which was styled liberal, did not disown the Zionists as if they were not members of their race, but as brother Jews who publicly professed their faith in an unpractical way, so as to create a danger for Jewry itself. So that's Adolf Hitler out of Mein Kampf, where he says race. When he talks about the Jews, he classifies them as a race.
Crystal wrote here, because she's been to Israel, she says, by being in Israel, you see a great difference between white and that nation. You could really tell we were outsiders.
Yeah.
So
And I would say the same thing in Asian countries too, because I spent some time in Mongolia, and then I was in South Korea, just shopping, and I'm at a store, and the cashier is there, and I'm like, "You're Mongolian, aren't you?" She's like, "How did you know?"
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody just thinks I'm South Korean.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it's the features, but
some of it's
yeah.
just like, for whatever reason, he's one of the first one to confound me. If I hear a voice, I'm about 80%, I can tell your ethnicity. He confused me.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. I was like, I'm hearing vocabulary and vernacular and connotation that could be considered white, but I also hear the black. Wait, what?
It's the Midwestern dialect.
It's not the Midwest.
No, it's the language of, it's the dialect of broadcast. Broadcast journalism, generally speaking, especially on a national stage, you'll have that Midwestern
It
dialect.
crosses, yes. And that, but see, people get that from me, not like a color difference, but they go, I can't decide whether you have a northern accent with a southern twang or a southern accent with a northern twang. I can't figure it out. But that comes from the fact that I've lived around the world. His comes from being in New York, which is very funny because his brother's accent is way thicker. And it's not even as bad as some I've heard.
What,
But
more of a northern accent?
More of a New York accent.
New York, yes.
Yes. But his brother has a much more prominent accent compared to him. Now, that being said, he left when he was 16 and never looked back, or never went back, I should say. So that does make a difference, but still, he does not have that except when he gets around his brother or his dad. Then it starts to assert itself a little bit more, but he still does not have the accent his mother or his brother or his father have. So, but that also comes with learning other languages.
Yes.
Exactly. So, and learning other languages means you enunciate and pronunciate a little bit differently. So,
Well,
let's put it this way. It wasn't the best comment to make in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
it's always, when you're on TV, it's always that political game.
It is.
You say something, okay, you said something wrong, how do you respond? Do you not respond? Sometimes when people don't respond, you just never hear anything about it again. Okay.
Yeah.
Sort of like that comment that Mitch McConnell made.
No, he will not let that go.
He said something about black Americans and normal Americans or regular
No, he
Americans.
said African Americans vote at the same rate as Americans.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
huh?
Black African Americans voted as normal American or as Americans.
Okay.
Exactly. Did we screw up?
Yeah.
Our mouth got ahead of our brain, And I think, honestly, that's probably what happened. I think that, again, had she left it with and I didn't see what the apology was, but had she left it with that, she probably would not have had the issues.
Yeah.
What did she say?
She just said that
Hey, Brittany.
the part that we
And Crystal
saw
said
on
amen.
television was that it was. Oh shoot!
I'm looking it up.
Yeah.
Well, while you're looking it up, I did want to throw out, because this was a question that we were kicking around, like, okay, so we talk about these feasts, and my question was, okay, did the apostles celebrate these feasts specifically after Christ?
Right.
It
Yes.
makes sense that Christ did.
Yes, it did.
Jewish.
Yes, it did.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, it did.
But we can look, and it's scattered throughout Acts, Colossians, where, yeah, there's indications that these things were known and celebrated. So I'll bring up a couple of examples. Where goes this? Wait, I just had it.
There's several of them with Paul in particular.
Yes. Wait a minute. Okay, so Acts. We start with Acts. All right, I had it. Y'all had me looking up other stuff. It's okay. Find it. So this is the references. Open that. Okay, here we go. So Acts 2016. 2016. Almost there. There we go. Paul decided to sail past Ephesus to avoid spending time in the province of Asia, for he was in a hurry to reach Jerusalem, if possible, by the day of Pentecost. So he was hoping to get home. He was trying to get home for that celebration. He was trying to get to Jerusalem, not his home. But
Which is and the reason he was trying to get to Jerusalem is because it's a pilgrimage festival.
right.
Because they would take the wheat and the barley take the wheat to the temple.
Then we're at Corinthians 16 and 8. He writes, "But I will remain in Ephesus until Pentecost." So while it's not like a focus, like, oh, let me tell you all about Pentecost. Well, you already know about it because you already know about Shavuot. Now it's just like, yes, I'm going to be there for that. And so this is even, after the ascension of Jesus, that they're still holding to these festivals. And I think unleavened bread is mentioned in there, and a couple of others. And so then the question is, when did for example, Easter, Ishtar, kind of usurp Passover.
So did they do Passover and
I don't
they
think
just did Passover?
They did Passover. I don't think they did Easter because
Not the way
Not-
that
yeah.
we do. No.
because that's it. I mean that to them would have been a pagan festival.
Yeah, Ishtar was a pagan festival. The rabbit, the eggs, all of that stuff.
No, I'm not talking about Easter. I mean,
Yeah.
You're talking about
But-
resurrection.
They celebrated the resurrection, yes.
Right.
But they would have done that 3 days after Passover, regardless. Easter today is determined by the sun, not by where it falls after Passover, which it should. I mean, if we're going to be honest about it. They wanted it on a Sunday because it happened to be a Sunday. By the way, this year, it falls in line. Passover is Thursday. We would have the Seder Thursday night.
Easter's on a Sunday?
Easter's always
I
on
was on
Sunday.
Sunday.
Passover this year, the Passover is Friday,
It's Friday.
So it's a Friday as it
Thursday
As it
night,
would
just
have
like
been.
it was that year.
Okay.
Just like it was 2,000 years ago. It is again in that same exact order. So if we were to keep Easter properly, Easter would be 3 days after Passover.
so
But-
it wouldn't be on a Sunday except
It wouldn't
every
always
seventh
be on
year.
a Sunday.
Right.
Every 7th year it would be on a Sunday.
No, not every seventh,
Well,
but
roughly,
yeah.
but yeah. 'cause
Yeah,
would-
it'd be every,
it would end up-
yeah.
So we just keep it on the Sunday because it's convenience because of.
That's
And
what
that's the day he rose on the first day.
Right.
And because of that, they
Yes.
then kept
Yeah.
it.
So we say he rose on the first day, okay, first
Right.
day of the week, without regard to the fact that it happened to be the first day of the week, but it was 3 days after
Right. Right. So it was just, that's why you always celebrate Good Friday. And it's a Maundy, Thursday.
Which I've never heard
Meal.
of until,
Yeah, we hadn't, until something Methodist, wasn't it? Methodist that brought
we
it?
have Easter Monday, and then Good Friday, and then the following Monday is called Easter
Well,
Monday.
you have Palm Sunday.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's the week before.
Right,
Yes.
because that's when he came.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
And they were saying Hosanna when he came in, which means, if we remember our Hebrew, Lord, I pray. That's what Hosanna means. Lord, I pray. So so everything that happens now with Palm Sunday and then Easter is because it happened that time, that day, that year.
that time on a Sunday.
It happened to be a Sunday that year. Not because we didn't keep it that way. I mean, it just, that's where they said, oh, because the Lord rose, so that's the Lord's day now. That's why, that's part of where the division came with the Seventh-day Adventists in Christianity. Because the Lord said that the Shabbat, the seventh day, is the Sabbath, the Saturday, regardless. And they didn't want to change it to the Sunday.
Right.
So that's why they still do Saturday. But yes, so it's like it got stuck in time. Just like Catholics, either he's stuck in the manger or he's stuck on the cross. Right? You never, I mean, there's not this whole thing about, in Catholicism, about Messiah anywhere else other than on the cross or in the manger. Right? It's where he's always stuck.
Yeah.
It never moves forward. It never. It's supposed to. It was supposed to live. It's supposed. It's a. We say this is about the Constitution. It's a living document. So why are we?
Crystal says that's why you need to avoid the creatures, right, Aaron?
Creasters. The
I don't
creasters.
know, I kind of like creatures. It's actually
Just like the high holy Jews. I don't like them neither.
Here's another one out of Acts 12. It says, it was about this time that King Herod arrested some who belonged to the church, intending to persecute them. He had James, the brother of John, put to death with the sword. When he saw that this met with approval among the Jews, he proceeded to seize Peter also. This happened during the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So it was still a feast. It wasn't that, okay, well, Christ died, Christ is risen, Christ shall come again. We're not going to do any of this other stuff anymore. These things were still happening, certainly with the early church.
In part because most of the early church were Jewish believers.
Right.
So they would have kept those feasts, as was, if you go back to
But
Leviticus.
we just call it communion now instead of do this in remembrance.
Yeah, do this in remembrance of me, and that's perfectly fine.
Right.
But what's funny is that they talk about him being the bread of life, right? Which makes sense. He's the bread of life. But when we think of bread, we think of this, not a communion cracker. Part of the reason, there's two reasons that it went to the cracker, the wafer, okay? One is because that is actually what he broke at the Seder and passed.
Because it would have been unleavened.
Unleavened bread.
Right.
Right, so he actually broke a cracker. That's
So
one.
It's interesting, because I went to somebody invited me to an Episcopal church, and then they break the big loaf like that in hand to you, which would not have been consistent with.
And the second reason is, and Paul mentions it later about being a batch without leaven, without sin, being the new batch. Okay, it's the same. So leaven is referred to as sin, which is again why Messiah is the cracker, because there's no leaven. There was no sin in him, so there's no leaven. So that's where those two ideas coincide and still keep us with the cracker.
Right.
But yes.
But with today's Christian, we wouldn't necessarily celebrate the Passover.
Well, why not? It's about slavery to redemption.
I remember.
Whether it's
watching-
slavery from sin or actual physical slavery, from slavery to redemption. His whole ministry was literally summed up in that meal that represented the blood of the lamb over the door so that the angel of death passed over. Every single part of the Passover Seder can be matched with Messiah's ministry, with Messiah's purpose in coming. It was the very first, well, not the very first, but it was the foreshadow. If you look for it, you can see Christ in every single thing. And I don't even have to.
Galatians 4:7. Okay.
Thank you. And you don't even have to, if you know the history, if you know the story, I wouldn't even need to mention the mirrors. You would see them. But I do, because that's part of the Messianic Haggadah story, is to make those bookends match and make it very obvious. And which is why, so I had this disagreement with somebody. Love her to death. Haven't talked to her in forever. But anyway, she was my Titus 2. She was, and I was still just very new to faith, but she was, and we had a disagreement. I said, if you know that his name is Yeshua, why do you still call him Jesus? Why are you not celebrating the feast? Why are we doing this way and that way? You know this isn't how he did it. Her answer to me, and I disagree, but like I said, you can disagree. She said to me that because my heritage is that, I am called to keep that, in part to be an example to other Jews, traditional Jews. That you're not losing who you are or what you believe in by believing in Messiah. We're not asking you to give up. And that's what some of them think, that you have to give up or you have to. And that because Gentiles have been grafted into the tree, and it was agreed that they did not have to become Jews to become Christian, to believe in Messiah, which is absolutely okay. My argument is God asked us to do it. God asked his children to celebrate the feasts. So we should try to celebrate the feasts. And you've heard me say it before. I don't care
When
if
you say children, you're not, he was not specifically speaking to the Jews?
I think it was inclusive of. If you're going to, see, because here's the other thing. Replacement theology is rampant in Christendom. And it basically teaches that Christianity has superseded Judaism as the children of God, that they are the new Israel. So that even, yes, I know. But anyway, so my argument to that is, if you have become the new Israel, then you better be celebrating the feast as he told Israel to do.
We always say you're his chosen people, so.
Right, right. Yes, but I'm serious. We were talking about, somebody said, well, what, like Pentecost. When I taught how Pentecost being when Moses went up the mountain to get the law on the stone, right? Mm-hmm. And now and this is also when, so if you fast forward 1,500 years from that, you get the Holy Spirit coming down. Those are the same times. So it went to write it on our hearts, right? Because it's supposed to be not on the stone, it's supposed to be written on our heart. Okay? That's the mirror. That's the foreshadow. Here it is on stone. It's written there for you, but you couldn't manage that, so now I'm going to write it someplace more, hopefully more permanent in your heart, right? But you had to have the first to have the second. Okay? So, and when I explained all of those matchings to her, she's like, I get it. Crystal was actually there. was Ursula. Ursula said, she's like, I actually get it. Why don't they teach us this? Replacement theology. That's why Pentecost, that's all you know is Pentecost. You didn't know Shavuot. You don't understand, you know. So, and I've said that, we kind of gave a foreshadow. Last year when I did the...
Hey, Jesse.
Hey! Last year when I did the communion, the Passover explanation up there, the idea was that maybe this year we could actually do a Seder, like the whole meal, and sit down for it so that you can experience it. Because one of the things of Passover is we're supposed to experience it as it's personal, that we are being freed from slavery. Whether it's, like I said, slavery from chains or slavery from sin, it doesn't make a difference. But we're supposed to make that a personal thing, not just what happened to them way back when. We're supposed to make it about us now. Just like there are holidays where it's believed that every Jew ever was present, in spirit form or physical. Every Jew was present.
So here's a question I have. I kind of wondered it, and I remember sometimes people would talk about it and make a big deal about it. But why do you think, why don't Christians celebrate Pentecost? Like, why is that not a big deal? I mean, you hear about Azusa and the outpouring of the Holy Spirit in California. You hear about those things like, okay, well that was cool, but it's not like an annual thing. But Pentecost happens every year, but it passes every year without any mention at all.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, huh.
We're like, oh, it's Pentecost.
Is it just expedience, or is it what would drive that? I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
I say it's replacement theology. It is, but that's why they moved Sabbath to Sunday. Part of the reason they moved it to Sunday. That's why Christmas is on the 25th.
Yeah, but I'm not sure how replacement theology would explain not celebrating Pentecost.
Except that they want to try to get away from the Judaism of everything.
Oh, that's based on denomination. So some
But
denominations.
Christmas wasn't really, it's not a really Christian holiday, it's really a pagan holiday.
Right.
And everybody, I don't know when he was born exactly, but they said he would have been born in the spring.
It's either the spring or the fall. Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Remember that lovely leap year? Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So
that's just something we just make up.
What's that?
Question for you. Which denominations are you tracking that would celebrate Pentecost? I'm guessing.
Like celebrate. Well, she's coming. It's going to take a minute. What was your question? Okay, so we're talking about spring versus fall.
Yeah. So I understand why Jehovah's Witnesses don't celebrate a lot of things because
no birthdays, no Christmas.
Yeah.
But they don't celebrate the feasts either.
They do. What do they call it? They don't call it Passover, but they do have that.
They have a meal, or they have a.
They have that ceremony every year.
Okay, so the Pentecostals really do. Okay.
Well, that makes sense. Pentecostals celebrate Pentecost.
That's what I was thinking, but I just want to be sure.
But the way they do it, they just pass the cup. They don't drink of the cup because they believe that you have to be a chosen.
I don't know.
One of the chosen.
I don't know.
Yeah. To drink from, to be worthy of drinking from the cup. But everybody passes the cup.
Right.
And the bread. Yeah.
So in the meal, it's actually a part of the meal that's that's been there for millennia before him, about the breaking of and the 4 cups of wine and which one was named what and which cup he passed. Like, he didn't drink the 4th cup, and he passed the 3rd around. So, I mean, communion as we know it came from that meal, which is why I think it's a good idea to celebrate that meal. Christendom, Judaism, it doesn't matter. Not to mention, what would Jesus do? Well, Jesus had the Last Supper. Let's eat it, you know? So, I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, we got the you mentioned why people don't celebrate. We see many false witnesses, prophets out there, and people do not want to draw attention to what Pentecost really was. Right. The outpouring of the Spirit.
Wow.
So think about it, though, when we talked about it, is that, stop it, is that they were in service and they heard about the outpouring of the Spirit and the rushing of the wind. That's in the service. That was in the liturgy. And then they come out. And out, and there's the wind, and then everybody's speaking their own languages, and everybody's understanding it like they're all wearing universal translators.
So it's like the reversal of Babel right there.
Right, exactly. So there's all, and that is when the Spirit actually comes down, just like the Word came down off the mountain. So they got to see the manifestation of Messiah and God in that moment, after just hearing about how it physically came down 1,500 years before. And so it was a big deal.
Right.
But nowadays, when people speak in tongues, when they supposedly have the Spirit, nobody understands.
It's because they're not speaking in tongues.
And then most of the time, they don't understand.
That they don't have to. So part of speaking in tongues, remember, we have that thing that you have what we think is being said by God or what's being told by God, and then you have to look for that confirmation.
Right.
And one of the biggest keys to it is to go back to the Word, right? One of the things about speaking in tongues is one person speaks and another interprets.
Now, that used to happen in our services.
Like it really did?
It really did. Now, it didn't happen often.
It shouldn't.
I can recall maybe 3 times
It should.
it happened.
That was at Shelton Mill Road.
At Shelton Mill
So
Road.
we're talking 10,
So
15
somebody
years
would say, and then somebody would interpret.
So that I would say I would be more inclined to say that was an accurate or a true
And
speaking
it
in
felt
tongues.
legit though.
Right.
But
right.
yes, but people just standing up and yada yada yada, or we've talked about that one before.
Because let me tell
but
you,
just
let me tell you
babbling
something.
is not.
Yeah, because I felt like, or sometimes I feel like I haven't received or accepted the Holy Spirit enough to do that.
Yeah. But not everybody
Because
can.
they always say that's the fruit of the Spirit. And then I'm like, but it happened to me one time when we were on in the building before we got here. I did not know what was happening to me. That had never happened to me before. And I lost all control, so I'm like, but I didn't understand it. Was I supposed to understand it?
Not if it was true tongues, no.
And
not according to what the Word says, no. And that's why I'm dubious. So people are like, well, God told me this and God told me that. And it's like they're having regular conversations. And I'm not saying I don't talk to God, but I don't have a conversation like we are having right now, right?
well, sometimes I have conversations. I mean, I don't get feedback like I hear from you.
Yes.
But if you
Yes.
Well, when you get in the Word, when you pray, you understand what God wants you to do. So
but I've had people tell me that it's a conversation. And I'm like,
But I do talk to him and
I
let
feel,
him know.
yeah, but I feel like you. There are many times I feel like you because, in all honesty, I swear I have heard God one time.
Me too.
One time.
One time, and it could
One
have been
time.
an angel.
It could have been. It could have been. But one time, it was supernatural. One time.
So,
I know it was
An
supernatural.
audible
Yeah.
voice?
so Crystal,
Okay.
Audible
so
voice.
Crystal
to me.
is affirming what y'all are saying about interpreting, and if there's no interpreter, then you should be silent. 1 Corinthians 14 talks about good order and worship, starting at 26. What then shall we say, brothers and sisters, when you come together, each of you has a hymn or a word of instruction or a revelation, a tongue, or an interpretation? Everything must be done so that the church may be built up. If anyone speaks in a tongue, 2 or at the most 3 should speak, one at a time, and someone must interpret. If there is no interpreter, the speaker should keep quiet in the church and speak to himself and God. 2 or 3 prophets should speak, and the other should weigh carefully what is said. And if a revelation comes to someone who is sitting down, the first speaker should stop. For you can all prophesy in turn, so that everyone may be instructed and are encouraged.
Good order and discipline, not
Yeah.
hodgepodge.
Yeah.
And this is also where that whole women not speak type idea, not that they shouldn't speak, but not that they should be over the top of people.
Yeah.
So, one time, yes, audibly one time.
Me too. Could you give your testimony and I'll give mine?
Sure. It was actually, we were in Hawaii, and I remember very distinctly, Michael, we were actually about this far apart too. I was sitting at the table, and Michael was over at the island doing something for dinner or whatever, and we were talking about how he didn't know if he wanted to continue in the military, and he wouldn't want to continue doing this because it felt like that every time that he's tried to do something, it's gone wrong. And he's not gotten what he wanted or what he thought he should be doing. And what he didn't know, well, he knew part of it, but I had been having trouble. I was pregnant with Mickey, and I had been having trouble in the restroom. My urine was the color of Coca-Cola.
Oh my word.
Yes. He says, you need to drink more water. I was like, that ain't it. I'm telling you something wrong.
Definitely.
So I went to the ER, and they did an ultrasound, because of course I'm pregnant. Turns out I have kidney stones. I have one that is 10 millimeters at this time, which of course they can't do anything about at the moment because I'm pregnant. So, but anyway, it was blood. That's what it was. It was blood, because I was cut up all on the inside. Anyway, so they gave me whatever to help with that. But anyway, while I was doing the ultrasound, or getting the ultrasound, I said to the tech, hey, you only have to move, like 3 inches that way, can we take a gander at the baby? And my friend Stephanie Taylor was with me. Now Stephanie is 6 foot tall, head full of curly red hair. But sweet lady, love her to death. Anyway, haven't seen her in 10 years. 10 years? Yeah, 10 years, something like that. Anyway, she made sure I had a baby shower for Mickey. I had a big party in the park, and everybody came. It was really cool. It was actually the only baby shower I had. Real one for all 3. But anyway, so she's like, well, I'm not really supposed to do this. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell anybody. And so she does. And we get a view of Mickey. That Miss Stacy, having 4 kids at the time, 4 or 5 children at the time, 3 of them were boys, she knew what she was looking at.
Oh, yeah.
She's like, oh boy! And I went, what? We had not found out with Caitlin, we had not found out with Victoria, and we had not intended to find out with Mickey.
Yeah.
Oops. So, based on other conversations, but anyway, a son. I did tell him that if number 3 was not a boy, we were not doing this again. We were done. Anyway, so he's talking about this and about things not going the way he thought they ought. And I heard, tell him. What? I don't know. Because he didn't want to know. We didn't want to know, right? And I was like, and I'm trying to convince him in other ways, and I'm like, okay, that didn't work out, but this happened. And had you not done this, then this wouldn't have happened. And we had this, and I get another one. Tell him. Oh, okay. That's when he found out that we were having a son.
Wow.
Because, you know, we had lost 2. And so now this is pregnancy number 5, and we have a son. And considering in my family that's a big deal anyway, we only have 1 in every generation for the last 50 years.
Are you serious?
Wow.
Yes, 14 children. There's only 4 boys born.
Wow.
All the boys are married in. We don't have them.
Wow.
Yes, and Mickey was actually the first one to have a bris in 50 years. So have a naming ceremony, the whole thing. But that was the one and only time I know it was supernatural. That was supernatural. But it was something that he needed at that moment in time too.
I was heading to church. It was a Sunday. And probably about 100 feet to me turning into the parking lot, whatever I heard said, give her $50. And I already knew who it was. So when I got out of my car, that person was right at the door.
Wow.
It was all set up for you.
I said, thank you for the confirmation, Lord. I know it's from you.
Wow.
And when I gave her, I had $50 in my purse. And when I gave it to her, I found out later that she had no clue on how she was going to get her supplies while she was in school.
Wow. Wow.
And that was the only time I heard the voice.
Wow.
So when you have that, and then you hear these people like, God talked to me, and I'm like, I'm sorry, what? I'm like, okay, yeah, go ahead, keep going. Because I'm not gonna rain on your parade, but I'm dubious. I have to be honest, I'm dubious.
But the closer you get to him, the more you will hear. I'm assuming. Because some people are closer to him than I would be. You see what I'm saying?
I think you're closer than I am, and if you were only hearing him once, I don't know what to tell you. I've been saved 20 years, and I've heard from him one time. I've been teaching for 10 years.
But I haven't been.
Now you know why I'm terrified. I'm going to be one of those ones that say, get away from me, I didn't know you. Terrified.
I pray on a regular basis, but I don't read on a regular basis.
I understand.
So I'm not that kind of Christian,
But
but
there's more to it than
I
that.
talk to him all the time.
That's more important, I think. You should read too. But
Yeah, I know.
you should read too.
More. Yeah.
More. You can get one of those chronological Bibles that have it on, January 1st. You're supposed to read until you get to January 2nd. Or, you know what though? I will say this. The weekly studies that we've had to do, or that we've started doing because COVID and then pastor and all of that other stuff, that's actually forced me to do more reading, both biblically and studious-wise, like studying background and stuff,
Right.
than I've even teaching this for 10 years, even studying for my lay leader certification. I haven't, the studying for the weekly has forced certain changes, and so sometimes maybe we should make you come along. and join us, and we'll give you what the topic is.
It should be a desire.
So,
Well, it should.
Don't spank me.
so Crystal says this, and this is good. The Spirit uses the Word to talk with us. Remember John 1:1-3, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. That is why it's really important to stay in the Word. And then she says, I'm studying too, but I will say that, yeah, I mean, if we're sitting around waiting for God to speak to us,
We're not going to.
there's 66 books of Him speaking to us.
Yes.
And maybe He's like, well, if you're not going to listen to the 66 books worth of stuff, well,
I'm gonna bother to talking to you either. But
He will. But I mean, that's spot on. You know, we have the Word for, you know, just kind of like we were talking about Barnabas this week, and just that idea of we gotta if we're in the role of the encourager, the supporting cast, whatever, we you know, if we trace Barnabas' life, we see that, yeah, he was faithful in that. We don't know definitively of any books that he wrote, but we do know that it's less likely that we would know anything about what Paul wrote if it had not been for Barnabas.
so Paul or Timothy thereafter, or even Mark.
Right. But that's God speaking through His Word. And so if we spend time in the Word and like, tell me about this person's life. Tell me about Deborah's life. Tell me about, you know, and we have it there. And I've found that through all those things, you can find words and encouragement for you that are specific to your life and specific to your circumstance. So,
And I think
keep studying.
And I think that with the prayer, like you're saying, and you're knowing you're having this, and you're getting the confirmation, and you're getting that communication, even if it's not like an audible, verbal. If you're getting that peace that comes along with that prayer, that you've had an answer, or that you've been communicating, however it is, I would say that you're still along the lines there, because if you're.
Because like I told you when I walked in, that I fell today, and the umbrella hit my eye. But I'm like, get away from me, devil. You know, get away from me.
I'm still going.
Probably, how old am I? Probably 30 years ago, I probably wouldn't have felt like that, you know. But now it's different.
But I think that shows. I think that then makes the few times that we are very certain that we heard that much more powerful. I think that makes us more sure. I mean, we could have that, like, you know, your husband loves you, right? I know my husband loves me. I know that he cares. He might be a little strange sometimes about it. Came in today, he goes, I love you. Thank you.
Yeah, I can give many examples.
But it doesn't have, but we know it. There's sometimes where you know it. You don't have to necessarily have a verbal, I love you. Or I love you. Whichever one comes, you know.
Crystal shares this. When you think about Paul in 2 Timothy, we knew that he was going to die after this letter. He sent encouragement to Timothy and others. He made it clear that he ran a good race. He had peace until the end.
There you go.
Thanks.
So, yeah, because I've had, you know, to kind of keep going with that little feeling or discussion thread there. One of the questions that's come about repeatedly is about, you know, kids and whether or not they really are saved, if they say they're saved. Or, well, you should be baptized when you're like 5 or 6.
Days old.
Not days old, but yeah, because of course you accept Christ when you're, you know, between the ages of 5 and 10, and then you get baptized. baptized, and I'm like, because the conversation came about because Victoria had gotten baptized when we were in Texas, and she's like, oh no, we do that when you're little. I'm like,
You have to have an understanding.
thank you. It's an outward display of an inward choice. And she's like, but you still do that. And I'm like, Messiah was 33. And she goes, well, you gotta do that. I'm like, Messiah was in his 30s? She could not get over that fact that just because the dogma of her or her philosophy surrounded this whole gotta do it when you're younger, she could not register the fact. So and Crystal and I have even had this conversation about who, I'm like, okay, so there are kids that I would definitely say are on the path.
Mm-hmm.
They're on the path, they're starting to understand. Will you have your, not oddball, but you'll have your unique child that will really, really, really get it? But we have too many pastors, and we've discussed this many times, Michael and I, about preaching rainbow and sunshine all day long. And they forget to talk about, or they don't talk about, the part that you expect the persecution. So, have joy in the suffering. How do you explain that to a 5-year-old? How do you think a 5-year-old actually gets it when they can't even make other life choices that are less consequential or more consequential, however you want to put it? They're not making those good choices, and yet you seem to think that they have the Savior. Don't get me wrong. You're going to have some children who can. But on the whole, I do not think I would, if a 5-year-old tells me that they've accepted Christ, I'm going to go, we're on the right path. And I'm not going to dissuade them.
Children are already saved. I mean, once they get to the age where they understand,
then they have to make choices.
They have to make choices.
Yes.
Then it's different.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
But like, I didn't get baptized until I was, what was it, like 6 months pregnant with Alex. And maybe that's the reason why she's so blessed.
I still haven't felt the right time to do it. I've still not been baptized.
Yeah.
It's just not been.
Because
I have not been moved that this is the time to do it.
Yeah, I was raised in a Methodist church.
Mm-hmm.
And so baptism wasn't spoken of much. And I believe there was a baptismal pool in the floor of our sanctuary, but we never saw it. And when someone wanted to be baptized, which was few in between, but they would just sprinkle.
Yeah.
So at this time, when I was pregnant with Alex, we were in Columbus, Mississippi. That's where she was born, and I was attending this church, and that's when I started. I don't know. Well, I was going through a transition of a whole lot of things, but I just felt that it was the appropriate time for me to get baptized after what I had learned. It was a long journey, but
I agree.
Yeah.
There was one place it was actually here in Opelika. There is a Messianic congregation, and I did go. I think I went twice. And their dogma is messed up. Like, this dude said you could get baptized, you could have a baptism in your shower. Nope.
With no witnesses.
Right. Everybody come over to my house. I baptize myself in the shower. Like, no.
He's like, you can baptize yourself every morning. And I'm like,
and that's not submersion, but
but there were other things that he did say that I felt were very right.
Okay.
So it was very odd. It was a very odd.
Conversation.
These 2 days were very, very odd.
You had a couple of comments.
Oh, I'm sorry. Comments.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So Crystal says, we need to ensure that we are not letting our ears be tickled.
Agreed.
We need to stay strong in the word only, not the word of men. Great point. Because if we're in the word, we're going to hear we're going to hear and read, God's word, as opposed to,
Man's discussion of.
man's discussion, or
Yep.
like you said, the rainbow and sunshine. Because
Yep.
some people be like, "Oh yeah, you mighty man of God, you're gonna be president tomorrow." Like, it's not even election year. But maybe, right? Line of succession, I don't know. And then she says, Glenn was baptized in the Jordan River in 13. This was something that he decided the night before. There was a testimony and a witness to others. Nice.
And-
Very nice.
And I know Crystal, so I know that she's going to be a lot more on that, and knowing what her, and Glenn is Glenn, so he's kind of a bit of an old soul just to start with. So, now we did dedicate all 3 kids, so we had them. So we.
But that's for the parent,
Yes,
not
that's
for the child.
and that's exactly it. Somebody
Right.
said, "Well, then, no." So we promised that we were going to raise them as that we were going to do our best to make sure that that was our promise.
Right.
So we've dedicated, but that's not a baptism. That's not what that is.
Right.
But we have done that. We have done that part. That was us.
Yeah.
Now they have to make their own decision.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I got other things about that one particular congregation that is just lots of, wait, what? And you're like, But I do want to, because we are at 2 hours, almost coming up on 2 hours.
Okay.
And not that if we're having conversation and we want to stay, I will stay all night. But as Pastor says, I want to be,
No, that was me. I didn't remember.
I want to be cognizant of your time. It is a Friday night.
night.
It's Friday night, and we're all so old, we're going to go home and sleep.
Ooh, I look forward to getting rid of
Oh, I was telling these kids today, I'm like, come on. I was like, the old lady is walking faster than you. Can you get in the wall? And these are 7th graders. And I'm like, come on, move. But anyway, so just a quick recap. The calendar is 19 years. There are 12 regular, 7 leap. It's called a,
And one.
and I wanted to call 911, and because it thinks I had a fall, so I had to answer it. Okay, so 19-year cycle, 12-month years, 7 13-month years, okay? And it's pretty stinking accurate. Purim Katan is the small Purim, and it's supposed to be an internal look at salvation and what that means, the salvation, how the salvation of the Jews with Esther, how that represents to you internally and your relationship with God, and have a festive meal on Valentine's Day. She was in that nice day this year. Yes.
For lovers.
I just said have a festive meal. I'm just saying have a festive meal. You can go get you some chocolate-covered strawberries because they're in all the stores right now, and have a little increased joy. And if you're on your own, then that just means your joy is increased that much more because you don't have to share that much.
Yeah.
She needs your hat recipe, and Glenn was witnessing in second grade after he accepted Christ.
I believe it. My what recipe?
Hat recipe, I think it's the cookies. Haman Tasha.
Oh. Yes, Haman's hat. I got it now. I will find it and I will send it to you. I promise. You could, if you know what, worst comes to worst, you could use a sugar cookie, and you just, when you cut the round, you fold the edges to make a triangle. And then put apricot jam in the middle. That's literally it.
I think you should post it on your Facebook for everybody.
I will. I'll put it in the group.
Send pictures of the cookies.
I'll put it in the group, I promise.
No, she
and the,
doesn't wanna use that one, she wants your recipe.
okay, I will get my recipe and I will still post it along with pictures because I'll make the girls help me make them. Okay? Is that okay, Crystal? Is that okay? And if you say it's not, then I'm gonna make you join me to eat them out of North Dakota. Because I know you want to come out of that. Down to we had 70 degrees yesterday.
Oh, you shouldn't have said that. She just said it's snowing and -13.
It's currently 37 degrees with no snow.
Well, then come visit, you got extra room.
We do. And we're not going to be here much longer. Then we're going to go to Virginia. So, anyway, love you, Crystal, and Jesse, and Craig, and Hannah. When you finish this, and all of you that will watch it later, thank you very much. Thank you, ladies, for joining me.
Thank you.
And shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom. End it, por favor.
Okay, she said, love you too, peace in the Middle East.